Should be good.
Okay. You ever forget to zip up your fly?
Oh, yeah.
Earlier today,
XYZ.
I got to uni and I was like,
Do you know about that?
XYZ, yeah.
Examine your zipper.
The Germans say X. No, they say something about cows. Right?
You
I don't
really
know.
into cow, like the purple cow thing, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
now this?
It is. I often say it's my spirit animal.
Aw, but cows kill more people than sharks.
Pardon?
Cows kill more people than sharks do.
yeah, but there's a lot more of them. Like statistically, I feel like on average, cows have killed.
So what is that supposed? I'm supposed to hate cows? Or
No, no.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to episode 11 of this Unsigned Berlin podcast. Today we have Nate Bernardini, a local musician, songwriter, interviewer also, just overall really great musician, and we're really excited to have him here. So, yeah, welcome to the show. And anything we want to start with in particular, Sebastian?
Yeah, it'd be nice to know. We ask all of our guests why you chose Berlin specifically for kind of creating your career here and sitting here to do music. Like, what about Berlin stood out to you?
Yeah, so I've been doing music since I was 15, and then was always writing songs. Never really with the intention of wanting to be a songwriter or live in Berlin, or I had no dreams in that sense. I wasn't thinking, one day I'm going to be on this big stage or on this TV or I'm going to be on this or that or whatever. Just having a really content life, connecting with people in real time and space in my community, and playing music for them, right? I was very happy doing that throughout high school, and then going to college. You know, I studied translation and interpretation, and sorry, not interpretation, but German and translation.
Right.
And after my studies, I paid back my student loans in the United States that I still had from the 2 years that I studied in Tennessee, and then was like, okay, what do I want to do? I could keep teaching English full time, making good money, or doing, there's all kinds of things you can do if you want to make better money than you're making now. If you really want to do it, like the ambition is probably going to drive you there. If you want to make more money doing something that maybe isn't what your heart would do on pilot mode. But my heart on pilot mode is definitely writing songs and playing them for people around me. Don't ask me why this is, right? But it's something that's sort of in the human experience, that everywhere around the world there's people who write songs, stand in the middle of a group of people and sing what they wrote, right? And they've been doing that for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Not with the intention of, I'm going to be a superstar. Not with the intention of like, I'm going to have so much sex appeal amongst these people, right? Yeah. It's just sort of like, I'm going to do this to connect these people, right? And it didn't have this sort of like, remember me when I die, and remember my song, right? Kind of thing, right? You just played it and sang it.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think I've sort of always had this just going with the flow of playing music with people around me, doing things when they're offered, but not really pursuing something beyond that, just because I was just so happy with that balance.
Yeah.
So when I came to Berlin, it was the first time I had ever in my entire life, I'm 37 now, starting when I was 15, where there were so many people, talented people, playing music, meeting in public spaces, exchanging ideas, collaborating, and sharing themselves, expressing themselves in public. And there was so much of that I just immediately felt, okay, this is where I want to be. If I'm living in a small town, you're not going to have as many songwriters and musicians living all around you that you can meet up, at a short bike ride or even walk. And put on epic shows on great stages with great sound. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, I mean, the locality of that, I feel like, is a big part of what you are trying to do, where you have the support local music nights as well, that you did one, I think last week maybe? There was something very recently, yesterday.
Yeah, it was great.
What's the sort of goal with that? Is it trying to just create a culture and a community around that idea, or? No,
I mean, it's kind of, I think it's basically what I think you're doing as well, maybe unconsciously, if I don't know what your intention is really in doing these things, right? But you're still talking to people and connecting people around us and
Yep.
and sharing a story of people living within a localized area, right? You
Mhm.
could call yourself Unsigned World,
Yeah.
right? But you call yourself Unsigned Berlin. So that means your target audience, as far as the people coming on your show, are
Mhm.
limited to the people living in this city, I would assume.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's very focused like at the scene here with similar reasoning where it's like there's such a vibrant scene here and so many people on a really small scale or anything in between to something massive just doing what they really like and trying to provide a platform for them to be able to find more people and tell their story and be able to connect with people.
Yeah.
And I mean, for a musician, for me, at least in my experience, the closest you can get to other people in a really, really tight community on whatever scale is working in bands and working with other musicians. And you have a few projects that are
Sure.
band things. Was that part of the idea behind that, or was that sort of another thing where you're like, I'm just doing this because it's what I
The
love?
thing is, I never thought about these things before. Right? It was all pilot mode. But then when COVID happened and we were all on lockdown, and all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I'm not able to go on pilot mode in the way in which I share my music with my local community directly by just doing it intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
You realize, oh wait, I missed this. I need this. Why do I feel this way? Why am I having this mood? Right?
Yeah.
It's not normal. Right? So there was definitely an imbalance within myself, having that restriction on a cultural level, that I just sort of brought it to my awareness how important that is. Even though if I have access to all the music in the world in my room, living alone in Charlottenburg,
It's not the same.
it's not the same as me going over to my friend's house on Wednesday to do band practice. It's not the same as playing a show in a bar, right? So I think it's just important.
Nice. Yeah. Is that why the Hymns for Porridge series came about?
Hymns for Porridge happened because I had nothing to do with my life.
Well,
Really?
So it's why I started
this was
doing-
this was during the pandemic.
Exactly.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like this way to, connect with people still.
The thing is, I
Right.
wasn't even thinking like this.
Really?
I had the need within myself, obviously, to connect to people because that's a normal thing, right? People have the need to connect to people within themselves, whether or not they're aware of it or not, right? Because we're human beings. This is how humans are.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I didn't have anything to do with my life. I was living alone. Nobody lived around me in Charlottenburg, so I didn't get a whole lot of visitors. And all I had was this technology around me that I could turn on and then talk to somebody on the other side of the world, or I'd call friends who I haven't talked to a long time, or call my family or whatever. And it's fine for a while. You're having fun and the conversations are nice, but then you're just like, man, I wasn't thinking that. You just feel it. There's a lack that this technology, is amazing as it is, can't fulfill within myself.
Yeah.
It can't replace community and it can't replace local culture for me. So I was like, okay, if I can't perform, because I realized there was a difference between, I was like, oh, great, I'm going to stay at home all day, play guitar, practice, it's going to be great, right? But then when I'm not able to perform, there's this feeling of lacking within myself as well that pushes me to do what I'm doing, right? It's that, so, okay, you haven't done it in a while, you need to do it again, right? It's a weird thing that humans do, but it's part of the human experience, and this is something that we songwriters just do. So I was like, okay, then I'm going to do a live stream. I would never in my wildest dreams ever think about doing anything live streaming. I couldn't care less. I always wanted to play live, not in front of a camera, ever. Like never. Why would I ever choose that over the other? Right? So even though streaming technology was available before the lockdown happened, it wasn't something that I was really thinking of seriously ever pursuing, And then I just woke up every single morning to get myself out of bed, and played one song on Instagram Live before having a bite of porridge, which I made every morning anyways. And I called that Hymns for Porridge.
Nice.
And then a friend of mine was like, oh, I'm just at home also making porridge. Why don't we split screens and talk about how we're doing or something? We didn't know what we were doing. It was super awkward. Me and my friend Eleanor from the upcoming Storm, who's no longer in Berlin, but she was the first person I had on the show, even though it wasn't something I was trying to do, right? Just a funny thing to do in the morning.
Yeah.
And then another friend was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds cool." And then okay, it just all of a sudden just came at me without me really pursuing it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people sort of thought of it, looked at it as like, "Oh, this is a way to connect during lockdown."
Yeah.
You know, so just and then it became my daily routine. I did it every morning, 9:30 a.m. People came all the way. Some people came to Charlottenburg at first. It was all split screened,
Mm-hmm.
and then people started coming over to my house. Eventually,
Yeah.
having porridge, talking about music.
And then again, you have Instagram Live, so you're really, it's really including your audience in what you're doing, which is
Yeah, so you get the
kind of
live
that
interaction.
that missing element of the live
Yeah.
playing, where there's that energy, at least, even if it's somewhat virtual. But with that, you open the songs. I don't know if this is consistent with some of the older episodes, but you open with "This Little Light of Mine."
Yeah.
What's the reason for that choice of song? I was really curious.
Well, I'm trying to remember why I started doing that. Because initially, when I started doing Hymns of Porridge, I started every single morning with my own song.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did
Okay.
see
Now
that.
I remember. And then during the pandemic, Dean is home. A busker was stopped by like a SWAT team, basically, of policemen for playing in Mauer Park on a beautiful day that was packed with people because it was a beautiful day. And then they made it seem like he was the reason for all these people in Mauer Park,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which was not true. The park was just packed with people because we couldn't go anywhere else, and it was gorgeous,
Yeah.
right? And people were liking the music, and then all of a sudden, like 4 SWAT vehicles come, and they surround Dean. There was literally like 5 to 8 policemen surrounding him. Put on your mask, follow me, give me your information. They didn't take his stuff, but it was a huge ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there was another musician there. His name was Marlon, and he got fined
Right.
because he played before Dean and his equipment was next to it. Blah blah blah. It was a wild thing, and you would think if that happened to you, you would never do it again.
Mm.
Right? But Dean was like, I'm doing it tomorrow again, right? So there's this fearless attitude that street musicians have, right? Like they get stopped by the police, they tell them not to do it again, and we do it again, right? Because we believe in this art form,
Yeah.
and we think it needs to be there, right? Because we don't want to be living in a city where they say it's illegal and you can't do that, right?
That's so interesting. I never thought of that perception of it before. I think, like most people, I always thought it was like, oh, this is a way that people can make money by performing to the public and doing what they love without having
you
to.
can also make some money doing it as well, right?
Yeah, no, it's just another perspective I never really thought about before. Yeah, no, it's interesting.
Yeah, so he got busted by the police that day, and the next day I was like, Dean, you got to come on Hymns for Porridge. I'll come over to your house. I woke up in the morning, went over to across the city, went over to his place, made porridge in his kitchen. We were setting up the cameras and everything. Dean loves to talk. I don't know if you should have Dean on your show.
Yes,
Yeah.
we
Dean's
always
great.
love when our guests have a lot to say.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Dean,
perfect.
Dean is like, he loves this kind of stuff, so he's all for it. Hey, good morning, dude. Yeah, you want some coffee? All right. He's like, grabs his banjo or something. And then I just released a single at the time, Stretch My Mind. And we were playing that at the beginning of this show. And then we were talking about what happened in Mauer Park. And at the end, I was like, you want to play a song? He's like, yeah. I was like, this little light of mine. And I think he didn't know the song. Yeah, and this is unusual for an American, because Americans are like, how do you not know this little light of mine? Every American knows it. But in Europe and beyond, it's not always a very popular song. Like it does have a pretty good outreach in the German music listening. I don't know, like even have a German version of it, like Das kleine Licht von mir, lass es leuchten hier, right? But not everybody knows it. It has a cultural, influence in the United States, from a traditional aspect. It wasn't even, nobody knew who wrote that song.
Mm.
It was just sung in parts of the United States. I think Montana or something. I was reading an article about it on Wikipedia recently. And nobody knows who wrote that song. And I just find that interesting because whoever wrote it didn't care to have their name next to it, and it was just being sung. Maybe maybe 20 people were sitting around one day, and one guy was like, this little I don't know, and the other was light. Who knows? Maybe like 20 people wrote that song, and they just started singing it, and then it became what they sang in church. Who knows, right? But it was passed down. And wasn't spread across the United States until you could record it. And then everybody heard it. And then it became part of the civil rights movement. People were singing in protest songs. Yeah. And so Dean wasn't feeling so great. He's like, I'm going to go and play again. I'm going to do street music again. But it hurts me that I get bombarded by the police like this, Yeah. He's not a criminal. He's not trying to do anything bad, Music that wasn't spreading the virus, Whereas oftentimes during the pandemic, you kind of had the feeling like music was sort of this potential virus spreader. But there was always this question, what if we sat here on the street, there's social distance, everybody's far away, and everyone's even wearing a mask? Isn't there some way, shape, or form we can share and still do culture? Yeah. Despite what's happening? Right? That was sort of the question that kept on being raised. If you're not working in the cultural world, right, or if it's not really part of your day-to-day life, this didn't matter to you. Nobody thought about these things or discussed these things in the public, right? Yeah. In public, it wasn't being talked about at breakfast table in homes across Berlin, right? But there were demonstrations. They had the Alarmstufe Rot, which was a massive protest that had to do about saving the cultural industry, the music industry, our venues, blah blah blah. It was the whole thing. And I went to some of those protests. I thought they were nice. Yeah. And so yeah, he wasn't feeling so good, and he said he still wanted to play music. And at the end of the show that day, I said, do you know this little light of mine? And we played that song. And Dean was feeling so much better afterwards. He was like, I feel great, this little light of mine. He's like, what a great song. I'm gonna let it shine on. We got into the piano. He's like, this little light of mine. And we were singing it all morning. And Dean and I were like, you know what, dude? Let's do Let It Shine Challenge. # Let It Shine Challenge, where we challenge other Berlin-based songwriters to sing this little light of mine in their story and challenge 5 other people to do the same. To remind ourselves that we aren't going to let our light
be vanquished. Yeah,
extinguished.
Yeah, taken away. I remember when they would do the sweeps through parks and stuff. It was really disconcerting, and you really felt like there was something being lost there. That was a big part of the culture here. Yeah.
So that's why I started singing it every morning, And then I was always asking people. The first question on the show was what gets in our way to shine in the world? What do you think?
Gosh.
I feel like there's so much. I mean, for us here in Berlin, in a pretty safe environment where we have technology, we have all the basic needs are pretty much covered if you're fortunate. There's so much opportunity to be able to shine through, but I think the overwhelming factor for me, where it's this is maybe a problem where people can't communicate properly, is that there's such a volume of information that people are taking in all the time, whether it's on social media or just on a day-to-day basis. If you're walking around, and often you don't hear street musicians because you're listening to your headphones, and there's just so much content and stuff that it's difficult for individuals, I feel to get their message and their feeling and whatever they're trying to say and get that out there to anyone that hopefully is listening. Yeah.
I agree with that. I think there's another part of that is I feel like when you pursue music, people don't believe you. Or there's kind of this so you want to be a pop star. no, I want to be I don't know. I mean, Max Martin maybe is a very popular example, but I mean, Ed Sheeran is his own thing and is, huge world pop star. But then,
I mean, how sad is that people immediately start comparing me to Ed Sheeran because I say I want to do music? It just
that's
shows
exactly
you
right. Yeah.
how disconnected we are from what local culture is, what our actual culture is without technology.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's so little knowledge, and it's such a vast, thing. I mean, you can be a ghostwriter, you can be a part of a songwriting camp for a big artist, you can be a producer, you can be all of these different things, and just sometimes when I find myself labeling myself as I'm a sound engineer because it's easy to digest for a lot of people, rather than saying, yeah, I'm a songwriter, or yeah, I'm just a musician, There's just such a pressure to pursue something that's going to make money in a traditional sense.
But all that aside, we're human beings. And what do human beings do when all the technology is taken away, when there's no capitalism, so on and so forth? What do? We connect to people.
Right? Talk.
Yeah.
We talk, we connect to people, and this is how we form community and culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So even in those, bigger roles of being a musician, and even if you're really famous, I mean, that all comes from the connections you make with people. I mean, I think of like Benny Blanco, for example. I mean, he's made a career. He's produced for, I think, Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift.
But what about local musicians? Like, don't you think your focus as Berlin,
or even like what is Tala? Like, she's a really great Berlin artist, and like I've gotten to meet her, and then, I don't know, like I bought merch from her one time, and then I just felt someone like squeeze, like just come up behind me, like, and I was like, and it was her, and I was like, So I think, as an artist, as a producer,
did you know her? Or?
No, it was just like it just kind of happened, and then I got to, I just find that I have these connections being made with my peers at BIM, or otherwise, like, yeah, I'm able to make those connections, and then. So yeah, I mean, that's cool, moving up and meeting people. But I think, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe it's a U.S. thing too. The Berlin scene is it's so like, I don't know. It's so well connected, and the U.S. is just so spread out. I think it's interesting coming from that perspective, where, there are these really condensed spaces like L.A. or Nashville. And here it's just, I don't know, it's nice to be in that mecca, kind of. But yeah, I think just the general misunderstanding of the industry and what musicians actually do from the general public. Whereas I think in Berlin, most people are artists. I mean, that's what the city draws in. So it's a lot easier to be understood here, I think, than a lot of other places with that stronger community sense. So, yeah, but...
So I still do the song, this little light of mine, every morning, and it's been
a couple of years now.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good song to sing in the morning as well, It's like waking up, and you're sitting there in the kitchen with a bowl of porridge with a fellow community member, singing this little light of mine. It's just something great about it. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a really good song.
It's a nice pillar of positivity to start your day with as well. Where with regardless what's happening, you wake up, and if this is the first thing you're doing, I don't know, I feel like I would come into the day with a bit more of a positive mindset on sometimes, if that's how you're starting your day.
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I'm not doing it every day anymore, because now like life has opened up again, and there's more opportunity for everybody to share their music and their voice, and I think the motivation of doing it every single day, Monday to Saturday, was just because nobody had a voice really in the public, and like the public and the people watching it were mostly like other community members who I knew. Yeah. So it was great, because everybody was just like, oh yeah, I want to go check this person out. I was doing it for my community. I still do it for my community, even though it's a platform that technically the whole world could stream, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not doing it for the numbers, and I'm not doing it for the fame. I'm doing it just to talk to these people, and for the people around me to watch it, and hopefully connect to these people as well in the 3D world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you also had Johannes on which is half of a rainbow,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
we haven't had on the show, but is
Whoa.
performing
Me
kind of in
too.
a similar circle of people. And what's your connection with them? How do you know them?
How do I know him? I think it's interesting that you want to know my connection with him of all people.
Well, it's just because I think it's a person in common. I don't
I
know.
see.
Yeah,
There
no,
there's probably
I know
more,
him
but-
pretty well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's just in our community, really,
All right.
as a fellow student.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, is he like sort of like well respected among a lot of people in the community that you
I mean-
perceive
Yeah.
you're in? Or
Yeah, for
Yeah, I
us
would
it's
say
more.
so.
It's like friends, or like more that approach is like, oh, it's just
Yeah.
people we spend time with,
Yeah,
not necessarily as a like, oh, he's a musician. It's like, oh, he's a friend, you know.
he is.
And
Yeah.
that's what I mean. That's why we're curious.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
That
So-
was just, I recognized him immediately. I was like,
yeah.
All right.
Johannes.
All right. And have you heard his music before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love his song "Nightclubs in Heaven." It's
All right.
good tune.
You as well?
Yeah, I think there was a live performance.
At Wild at Heart, right?
I think so.
Was it that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Yeah.
people know his songs as well that you also speak with,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they've all sort of met him in real time and space as well.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah, he has
Yeah, it's through the university connection as well, so it's like a lot of us
Right.
kind of know
Mhm.
each other through that.
There's
But
a lot
yeah.
of value in that exchange, I'm assuming. Like,
Yeah.
You know, these are people who are part of your community. You see them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
There's a songwriter in this community. His name's Johannes. He writes a song. He plays it on stage. Everybody likes it. They talk about it,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, one of the coolest things about that for me is that I do music completely different to the next person. The music that we do is completely different, and
Yeah.
you get such a variety that you wouldn't get through the internet or people you find
Mm.
on groups or people you meet in bars often, because you'll be in a bar you'll be there for similar music because you like that atmosphere. So getting
But
that
you think a
completely
lot
out
of
of
people who are
nowhere.
listening to your podcast also know who he is.
No, actually, I
No,
think there
probably
are a few people who listen. I know who tune in just because they're curious about Berlin
Yeah.
and the music scene here, and
Mm-hmm.
just
So what are
Yeah.
some other artists in Berlin that you really like to listen to, or you even know their songs?
The one, I mean, we actually had them on the podcast recently, Kuma Collective.
I like Kuma a lot.
They're the ones that if they have a live show, I'm
Yeah.
excited for it because I think they do a really, really great job.
Mhm.
And then other than that, for me, it's mostly locations where I'm like, I really like the jazz nights they do here.
So
Or-
we're not talking about necessarily specific songs. We're talking about more just jam sessions, jazz nights,
Mm.
right? Or
Yeah,
like-
mostly. Yeah, mostly for me, it's events that I'm really pulled towards specific people for. And the way I consume music on a day to day is very like shuffle
But what about
oriented.
like lyrics? Like you already mentioned Johannes. Are there other musicians where you're listening to their songs and you could sing their melodies?
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh, I feel like I'm not gonna be able to back this up now, but a friend of mine plays in a band called Asker's Dodge, and I really love one
Okay.
of their songs.
Yeah, I've heard this band before, but I haven't listened to their music. But I think
they're very
kind of
local,
and they're
and
new, kind of, right?
yeah, and they've got a new song. Like I'm tracking like a new song. They've got a new track coming out, and I got to see them live opening for another band.
And you could sing their songs.
Right now it's like, oh, I can't. But yeah, I could. Like I like their stuff.
Yeah. I mean, again, for me, in terms of being able to sing songs, which is for me very rare because I don't pay that much attention to the lyrics often the time. I'm more like very texture and rhythm based.
But these massive hits that everybody knows, you probably know the lyrics to.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's because I've had them so many times, like very frequently, and it happens less with local acts because it's more in person. You get it. Like
Like if I said like I'm in love with the shape of you.
yeah,
You
and
would
it's
know
like
the
oh,
next-
I've
what's
heard
the
that
next
hundreds
line?
of times.
What's the next line?
I'm in love with your
Push and
body.
pull,
I'm in love.
like
With
that.
Oh, it depends on the yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Or maybe
Depends
I
on
don't
where
know.
we are in the
Maybe
song.
maybe you're right as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
But you knew the next line.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But he's a fantastic. I mean, there are so many fantastic songwriters in Berlin. I mean, that haven't been discovered yet. Who you have at your nights, you know. But I mean, he really
But
started off.
do we sing their songs in our head, right? Do we listen to them? Do they become part of our musical perception of
For me, it's
culture?
very rare.
No,
But I think it's because
rare.
I hear them less frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But if your conscious attention was just shifted from what the mainstream is sending us without us looking for it
Yeah.
to the people who are standing in our community and singing their songs, and you listen to their music on Spotify, which is an incredible thing we can now do that I couldn't do when I started doing music when I was 15, right? So even though I'm emphasizing music without this technology, I still see the value in these tools and the way in which they can connect people in the real world.
Yeah, as far as that goes, there's not any I can think of off the top of my head.
Half of a Rainbow, that's it.
Well, even then, I don't think I could sing lyrics.
Well, maybe this is a bit biased, but Lucy Frank is also a fantastic songwriter. I mean, she's more of a friend, but
that's okay.
She's great. Like I love her music.
Yeah, isn't
I
it
can
great
totally
to have, like, a
sing
friend
one of
who's
her
also
songs
writing
off the
songs?
top of my head.
Also, I mean, Woody Woodstock.
Yeah.
Great songwriter. He's more aligned with what I'm interested in.
Yes, I could.
I
could.
Crucify Me is great. And Brightside. I think Brightside, both of us could probably. I mean, I could definitely bang out the chorus. I don't know if.
Wait, is this a Berlin artist?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, basically.
What's the name?
Woody Woodstock.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old is he? Is he like a new emerging artist or what?
Yeah.
He's like.
I don't know how old he is age-wise. Yeah, mid-20s. But in terms of how long he's been making music, he's been performing for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and then having stuff online. I'm not really sure.
I know he toured with a band, and he's had other projects in the past.
Yeah. But that's Berlin based, and that's a big recommendation, I'd say, as well.
So like this person, for example, I've never heard of this person's music, right? But I think, okay, this person's in Berlin making music. I definitely want to hear his music and hear what it sounds like, right? And I also want this to be like an exclusive music culture. So like when I have the responsibility of putting together an event, sort of like some people tell me that I'm sort of like collecting names, but it's not necessarily like collecting it. There's just like this interest in getting as many people as I can on a stage that's sort of showing collectively who are the people making music in the city and what does that sound like.
Yeah, it's really curating, like making a scene.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and super diverse too. I mean, you can have. Do you feel like there's a lot of? I mean, is it mainly just singer-songwriter at these nights, or is it really? Genre,
at the beginning, like that's where I met Johannes. I met him at a Support Local Music Night, and he was wanting to play, and I was just like, yeah, this is what you got to do. And he was new to the Berlin music scene, and like also lockdown was just starting to loosen up, so there was sort of this ambition to sort of start going out into public and playing songs again and so on and so forth. And that's how I met him, and then he was on Hymns for Porridge, And I loved spending time with him that morning. I thought he wrote some great songs. I think he played that one that you mentioned. And I would love to see him live. There's just so many people, you don't get to see them all live, but I try to see everybody at least once.
Yeah.
But to go back to your question, so it started off with mostly. No, actually, I take that back. Because everything was closed when we started the Support Local Music Night in Prachtwerk, and the clubs weren't allowed to be open. And Prachtwerk was was one of these locations that could stay open and could have a large crowd under following certain restrictions and blah blah blah. 2G, 3G, 3G plus.
Yeah.
And so we were just doing it, right? And the first time we did that show, the line went around the building, and it was packed to the point they had to turn people away, like to the very front of the stage, to the very back of this massive room. I think the capacity is 300 people, and it was completely packed. And the second one I think was almost completely packed as well. And then everything started opening up again, clubs, things like this. And then we still had people coming, but it wasn't as many, because a lot of these people would usually go to clubs or things, and they don't usually go to concerts for made by local musicians. But at the time, people were wanting to connect to that. So, and last night, I think we had 100 and some people that were there. So there's definitely an interest, and it's not just musicians. No, not at all. There's so many community members there, and every single time we do it, there's more of that. So I'm seeing new faces every time I do this show. It's not the same people.
That's great. In terms of the bands that you're part of, what there's the Hidden Keys was. I mean, when I looked at what you're doing, the Hidden Keys is the one that stood out to me. Is like I really like that. That's the music that I loved. And the One Day Fly as well, also very in line with what I like, where it's kind of bluesy funk stuff. Are you still working with those? Is that an ongoing situation,
Yeah,
or
the
is it
Hidden
kind of
Keys
like?
is definitely more active than the One Day Fly. The lead guitarist Emily Waddison is living in Berlin, and she's now playing with a band called the Nemean Lions.
Oh, that's great! I saw them a week and a half ago.
Yeah, so the girl with the red hair who's playing guitar,
Mm-hmm.
she was the lead guitarist in the band The One Day Fly, and
Oh,
her and I
okay.
are both in Berlin for the same reason. You know, we
Mhm.
just both wanted to be here after we studied in the same university together.
Yeah.
And so sometimes her and I play on stage. I think we did it a couple weeks ago at a How Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
But the Hidden Keys is really the main project because we have the bass and the drums, and we're practicing every single week, and we're still coming out with new material. And with Emily, I haven't released anything with the One Day Fly for quite some years.
Right. Yeah.
The Hidden Keys has an album out, just one album, right?
No, we have 2 albums.
2? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, okay.
Well, first started, we were called Nate B and the Hidden Keys. That was the name that we initially had, and then the Nate B went away, and we're just the Hidden Keys. Because at first it was supposed to be a collaborative project, and then we were just like, let's just make it into one thing. A name change is always a sort of I always find it a bit unfortunate because you're changing your whole branding and everything that you've done in the online world to a certain degree, but like, okay, you're just taking away the NB, Nate B thing. But anyway, so like, yeah, we have a 5-track EP called The Hidden Keys. It's on Spotify. Our most streamed track is Backseat. It's like this funk song. And then we just came out with another album called Fluffy Duffy. And that one's at the moment is just on Bandcamp because we've made more money there than we ever have made on Spotify with the last album with its thousands of streams.
And it's €3
Yeah,
from
Yeah,
yeah. No, that's great to hear. I really liked the Hidden Keys.
Yeah, but it's great to have your music
great.
online. We have a show on the February 25th at Neue Beate.
Cool, great.
So looking forward to doing that show.
Yeah,
it's great to be playing with the band again. You know, the thing is, we were we were growing. You know, right before the lockdown happened, playing all over Berlin and playing in some of the bigger venues and everything. And there was a lot of momentum behind our project. And then everything stopped. And so when everything opened up again, it sort of felt like we were all starting over. And I think we're slowly building that momentum again. Our band isn't the best at promoting and marketing and doing regular posts and things. So the music is absolutely killer.
Yep.
And I think once you hear it and like experience it live, you know, you don't really care how many times I'm posting on Instagram anymore. Yeah. And but it's a great project. Yeah, it's beautiful. The band is absolutely amazing. You know, like I'm the lead singer, so I'm not making the music a lot of the time. That I'm just singing over. And I love listening to them play. You know, they're all really talented musicians. They've been playing. Some of them have been playing with each other for years. They're close friends. And I joined the project later. And yeah, it's music that I wouldn't be able to. In some cases, like there's like Latin American music that they write as well that I don't write. Right. If they have to put lyrics on things, I'll put lyrics on top of what they're making. But the styles of music go beyond what I could do by myself, and I really enjoy the diversity of sounds that band is putting together. Yeah, I'm not necessarily the head of that band in that sense, you know, like the one composing everything, and they're all doing their own thing, and
I mean, that's the ideal, is that there's collaboration within a band. Yeah. Well, I mean, some people are artists and it's like the head man or whatever, but I mean, for me, I like when bands put each a little bit of themselves into it and it becomes a different thing. Yeah.
Great project.
How many songs do you think you've written, period? Like, could you give just like an estimate?
Too many songs I have to count. A lot of them I don't play on stage
like
anymore.
Just rough.
If I were to guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got to be at least 200 songs.
I was wondering if that was the number. Okay, cool. That was awesome. And then just wanted to ask you your opinion as a songwriter. Like, when I know you've mentioned that you write from kind of concepts or themes, like you need kind of something to start with, and then maybe you still, that's how your process is. But I feel like some songwriters think that.
Where do you get this? Where do you?
I watched one of your Hymns for Porridge, and you just said that it was harder for you to like freestyle. I think there are some artists that, and I agree with this as well. Like, it's really hard to just make things go on the fly. Really?
Yeah, everything I do it's improvisation, and then I take the parts that I like.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, sometimes I'm also not in the mood to improvise. You know, sometimes you're sort of like in this like your intuitive flow where you're just like everything is just coming out and it's great, but
That's true. It's
but it
maybe
can't.
it's an
It's
intimate
oftentimes
thing.
it isn't forced, but
Yeah, or just like writing from a theme, or like writing from a single idea.
I tend to have something that I just want to get off of my chest. You know.
Fair. Yeah.
But lately it's been things like electromagnetic waves and electricity and
Oh wow.
lab rats.
Interesting. And do you feel like it comes from you, or a lot of people say that it, like you're opening yourself up to ideas and they're just floating around and they're coming through you? Is that kind of, maybe that's a weird visual, but I feel like
I think I've just been connecting more and more to the physical world. You know, I'm thinking about it from the perspective of physics. You know, everything that what we're doing and how this technology distracts us from having those thoughts and really thinking about our world from the way that it operates under the laws of physics, right? And I like bringing attention to this because I think it's how we used to think. You know, we weren't thinking about all the shit we think about every day, you know, with posts and outreach and how many streams or recording and all these other things. You know, you just went outside and you were just like, how did that tree get there?
Yeah.
What causes it to grow? What causes me to hear the sounds around me? Like, why is it I can hear the camera beep and I know that's happening over here and I can sort of differentiate. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah, differentiate. Yeah.
Between all the different sounds in the airs, you know, like people who study music tend to know about like the frequencies and how if I'm listening to one recording, I can sort of hear the bass, I can hear the drums, I can hear the vocals, I can hear all of those things because they're all being hit at different wavelengths, and those sound waves are hitting the particles in the air, and it's causing a vibration in my ear, right? So yeah, I think I've sort of am enjoying this songwriting process at the moment that brings attention to things like electricity. You know, like what is it? Why do we use it every single day? Everything we're doing right now is also caused by electricity. You know, how does this microphone work? How is it we're able to record these things? Why did this happen? Who was the first person to have microphones? When did we start doing it as when did it become accessible to the masses that we could just buy this and it was affordable for the middle class and they could do the things that they're doing now and share it the way that only people with exclusive privileges and connections were able to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. I like that. That's an interesting answer. I feel like you don't hear that often. That very like.
I think because I've been writing songs since I was 15. So like I mean for me personally, the more that I write songs, the more that you want to do something completely different. You know, you're looking for things that are just are not the typical thing that everybody writes about, or things that I used to write about, like even political things. You know, I used to be like a lot more political than I think I am now. Even though I think everybody's political in some way, shape, or form, but and I still play my political songs. You know, it's not that I don't care about them, but like for example, I played at the Heimathafen Song Slam, and you could have one song, you know, and I could have picked one of my stronger songs, like When Mama Goes to Berghain or something.
Oh, that's such a good song. Just because it includes the audience, because you do like a little bit of a
intuitively. I mean,
that's such a that's a good tune.
Yeah, that's a good song. But I could have played that song and left a great impression on everybody. Instead, I bought a banjo a few days ago before that, and I wanted to play a song that I was writing on the banjo, even though I couldn't play it very well. And I didn't play it that well on stage. You know, it didn't flow very well. The lyrics were there and the story was there, and I was proud of myself that I did it, you know. But the message to me was important.
Yeah.
And it was more important to me than necessarily leaving the impression, because I would like us to when we see a light bulb on, to think about that it's a primal force. It's a force of nature that we have harnessed and now use to serve us, right? But it is it's nature controlled by us.
Nice. Seems like a great way to end.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well,
thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for your time. It was really nice to have you on.
Of course. Happy.
And yeah, you have the show coming up. We'll put that in the description. Is there anything else you want to put out there to kind of promote, so we can hopefully
I
get some
think
more people
Fluffy
interested.
Duffy album. You can promote
Yep.
this.
Bandcamp.
Our show at Neue Bert on the 25th of February. Support local music Berlin on Instagram. You can promote him for Porridge if you want. It's also a podcast on SoundCloud. Berlin Buskers on Stage. It's an event that I do at Das Gift.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the Il Kino event at Support Local Music, where we started playing local music videos in the cinema.
Cool.
And anybody who wants to play their music videos on the big screen can contact me on Support Local Music Berlin or Instagram, whatever. But all of these shows are connecting to people in really amazing ways, and it's exciting to see that happen.
Awesome. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Sweet.